So I first heard about the project. I got an email from who have become the two Martins. Martin Green, who's the composer and the writer, and Martin Atkinson, who's the producer for Lepus Productions. That's their company. Sort of saying, we've got this project. It's about this teenager who's an amazing tenor horn player. She's like stuck in a mine at some points and it's got a massive brass band. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, definitely. That sounds amazing. So we initially had lots and lots of chats to work out if we were the right people to work together. A lot of the work I'm interested in touches on sort of similar themes, I suppose, of place, of people, of community, of what it means to come together to do something. And also music has been quite a big part of my work and my practice as well. But the way in which it works, and Martin as the writer and composer takes a really specific kind of relationship between the two of us especially. You know, this piece has existed for many, many years in Martin's brain and heart, and also in lots of different formats. So there was like a podcast series, a documentary series, there was an audio drama, and so it's had various iterations. So this was the full time that it was coming, you know, full length to stage for theatre. And it's Martin's first full length play for theatre in this form as well, which is amazing what he's been able to achieve. Therefore, I wanted to just put us through like a really rigorous process of making sure essentially what his ambitions for the piece were is what was actually happening in the script. And it's quite a complicated story as well. When you describe the story out loud, it's like one of the things I love about it, but it's wild and strange and a bit magical and totally grounded. It's like all of these things. So making sure that, or trying to make sure that character arcs felt clear and felt there was that sweet spot between enough but not too much. And also just in terms of, I suppose, structurally how we move through the piece, where we want audiences to understand certain plot points and things like that. And then I try and do as much like prep and script work and digging into the script I can do before rehearsal starts, because when rehearsal starts I very much prefer to be on my feet, because you know you always have limited time anyway. I will do as much therefore prep at home as I can, thinking about what are the questions that come up for each character, what does it seem that people might want, what is it that people are struggling with, for example. I guess it's the whole discipline sets you free thing. Do your work before so that you can come and be a bit freer in the room. Another bit of my job as a director is to support actors in finding their characters and finding the different dynamics that they're playing. And one of the things that I really enjoy is working out what actors might need. So one of the core relationships in Keli is that between Jane, Kelly's mum, and Keli. And we have got sort of short scenes that are peppered throughout the play that give us the opportunity to learn about their dynamic, and it's one that they care about each other very much, they love each other very much, they have fun together, they get on, but also Jane's experiencing some really debilitating mental health issues that are undiagnosed and mean that it is really difficult for her to leave the house on her own, and that is something that is getting worse. And external triggers can be pretty volatile, and Keli is sort of managing that on her own, and their relationship is why Keli ends up in the mine. It's in a way it's why she's desperate to get out, so it's fundamental. And for an audience we really need to believe them and believe in their relationship. We did do an exercise kind of early on with Karen and Liberty, who are just the most brilliant, gorgeous actors and incredibly talented and incredibly rigorous about their own process and wanting it to feel real and proper. So one of the things that we did is, I call it sort of text frames. So we get lots of different pieces of paper. They have like the same set each. And on each piece of paper, I'll write a statement that is not complete. So it could be something like, you make me laugh when ... or on the flip side, it could be something, you let me down when ... I was proud of you ... I get frustrated when you ... a whole array of different things, but they have exactly the same. Fold them up, put them on the floor, they stand opposite each other, and then they take it in turns. They'll read it and try and answer it. And in that answering of it, sometimes it might be something from the play that we already know about that becomes the answer. But I think when it becomes more useful is when they start imagining beyond the parameters of the text. So, for example, they might imagine a really ridiculous incident at a birthday party that went completely wrong, or they might imagine something that is hinted at in the play that then they explore a bit more widely. And essentially by the end of the exercise, if you have the possibility of having created like a bunch of memories, so that, you know, when Liberty can walk on stage and sees Jane on the sofa, she's also got a whole bunch of different, you know, in the way that we do in real life, you know, whenever we meet someone that we're very close with or spend a lot of time with, there's like a Rolodex of memories for us that make our relationship real and explain our behaviour towards each other. And of course the audience will never know that. I would be really surprised if they went, there was a silly birthday party or whatever it is. But what they might do, I believe, is the way that means that Liberty and Karen can relate to each other, I hope is richer for it. And obviously that's just a small part of then the process that they do themselves too. But I kind of believe that the more that they as actors understand who they are and they have kind of a depth of experience to think about, then we are as an audience going to in some way detect that, I think, rather than it just being on the surface. But right away there was this real interesting challenge of Keli is an absolutely incredible tenor horn player, and how do we stage that? So even before I'd gotten involved, there kind of become pretty much a decision made that it had to be someone else, because then we could kind of honour both things of the story. Like we could get someone who's dedicated their life to brass, you know, and a brilliant actor who's the right age and right place for Keli as well. So we did a lot of, in that week as well as the music, we did a lot of exploring of how do we stage that in a way that feels interesting and satisfying as well. There was like a practical and a wider thing we were considering. So the practical consideration was like she's not just quite good at tenor horn, like she's unbelievable and she has to be breathtakingly good. And Martin's experience of going into brass band rooms in Whitburn primarily, but across Scotland, he has been met with like extraordinary talent that like takes your breath away. So firstly, like I think our responsibility in depicting these brass bands is to celebrate the craft, and you know, these are people that they're at the top of their game, and so that's really important for us to make sure we get that right and give the audience the same experience that Martin and I had when you just get like your socks blown off. It's amazing, and that's really difficult, like because actually I'm sure that there are brilliant actors. I mean, Karen Fishwick, who's playing Jane, is playing euphonium in this, and she's absolutely amazing. But tenor horn as well, such a specific instrument. And then also on a sort of wider level, she's trapped in the mind and she's telling her story. So quite often Martin's written, you know, where Keli's describing the moment that she goes to the club and she plays this brilliant horn solo or whatever. We don't want the action to be slow. So the idea that you can be going, this is happening and we're seeing it live, we can't split her in two. And then also one of the themes of the piece that's so important is that Keli's just a normal 17-year-old with all the things that come from, you know, being a 17-year-old, but music is so much a part of her, but she really doesn't tell many people about it. And it's almost like a different version of Keli when she goes to the cooling tower and she practices on her own. It's like a different side of her. It's the place that she feels that she gets to release all of the pressures of the world. So it's almost like this like Keli that walks around in the world, and then like music Keli. So we kind of got interested in going, okay, well, all of those considerations together. And the third consideration, by the way, is also finding an actor who can authentically portray Keli, the age she is, where she's from as well. So that's all going into the mix. So with all of those considerations, we were kind of like, well, let's explore this idea that the musicians are going to be on stage all the time, and that Keli can be very much continuing her story, and we can place her in those scenarios, but we get to work with a tenor horn player, and can that work? And it was something I was really nervous about, because I was going, oh, is it just going to feel like, oh God, the actor can't play or whatever, like, you know. And I actually am really thrilled with what we've ended up with, because I think for a while we imagined that one person would be like the music version of Keli, and there would be this relation. So there's a whole bunch of exploration we did about them kind of like shadowing each other, and it felt like it was just too much, and it was kind of getting in the way of the story a little bit. But we still sort of, right up until rehearsals, thought it would be one person. We realised that the moment that when Keli goes into the club and plays this incredible horn solo, that's a bit of Hannah. So that started going, okay, well, Hannah could take that moment of Keli's, and Andrew could take the moments in the tower of Keli's. And firstly, we're really, really not literally going, we're not trying to pretend that the Keli that we see in the mine is playing. But I think it offers us, an idea that Keli could be anyone. it just so happens that we're telling Keli's story, but there's a million Kelly's in the world, and not just in brass bands, but in whatever it is, and it sort of widens it up a little bit. And I found it quite exciting, and I know that some people might come to it and go, well, she never plays, and that's okay. But I think what we get because of that decision is like exquisite musicianship, which is so important, and also, like I say, we get to sort of throw the lens a little bit wider on who Keli is. So the first time we looked at, I think it was the first band scene, you've got 4 brilliant musicians going for it, but also with a piece of music that's still relatively new to them. Actors who are, never stood up and done the script before, who are on book, met each other 2 days ago. We had pretty much an entire sound department because of the demands of the piece in the room, and loads of people. And the first time we did it, I was so overwhelmed by all of the information, and I could see the actors and everyone was just overwhelmed because there was just so much information. And it was one of the only times I went, oh my God, what if this doesn't work? Maybe we can't underscore the whole thing. And that's like one of the central hopes of the piece. So that was quite tough, but I realised then that I think we were so keen to make the whole thing as a process cohesive. We didn't want musicians and actors or the play and the music that everything kind of feels like it has to have a natural relationship. But from that moment I was like, okay, I think we need to split it just for a little bit, so what we started doing was, say, the first band scene, myself, associate director, DSM and actors, for example, would go just like reading it, chatting about it a bit and having a go at a shape for an hour, like not long, for an hour or something like that, even less sometimes towards the end, 10 minutes. And then at the same time, the musicians with Martin and George, sound designer, and the sound team who were in the room, they would go over the music that we had planned. And then an hour later, we'd come back and put it together and see what we had, and then tweak it and then try and work out the dynamics. And very much to my relief, when we did that, after feeling so overwhelmed by that first time we put the band music together, even just an hour later where you've had the actors are feeling a bit more in a stride of something and the musicians are feeling a bit more confident, and there's been a few more conversations about where the peaks are in that scene, and musically and, well, emotionally, because that does the same musically that it does for the text, then suddenly it was really strange. It was the exact same piece of music, exact same words being spoken, but suddenly I could hear it all, and it felt exciting and clear. And for the first bit of the process, every time we touched a scene for the first time, we did that. And once we had our first shape, then the rest of the time it was just all of us in the room all together, sort of, even big detail, but also tiny details like, if we take out 4 bars of that drum just while that bit of the text comes out, and vice versa, or that bit of the music we didn't realise, but that says so much more. We don't need to say it again with text, so can we cut that because of what they're doing? It was like that. There's a lot of themes that are running through it. I suppose the ones that I connect with the most are what it means to be a young person who is holding lots of different life pressures and who hasn't yet found the language or the way in which to share some of that. So I can absolutely, see Keli dealing with what's going on at home with her mum. Doesn't occur to her that anyone could support her with that, just dealing with it and wanting to protect mum in that and protect them in that. So kind of shutters come down. And then working at Scott Mid or whatever, and not really letting them know how amazing she is in the brass world and all the opportunities she's getting in the brass world, just dismissing it, keeping that as a separate thing, and then and then being this extraordinary player, but not letting this group of people who actually are kind of a bit of a family and are there for her, not being able to share that with them either, any of the stuff that she's going through. So we don't arrive at, I don't think, at a neat resolution, but I hope that we arrive at a place where it suddenly starts to feel a bit more possible for her to breathe and for her to be herself, whatever that means, but be herself in all of the spaces that she occupies, and be like, yeah, I work at Scott Mid and I'm an amazing tenor horn player and I'm doing, that she can be multifaceted. So that's a big one for me. Good of coming together and doing art, whether that art is, theatre, whether it's music, whether it's whatever, but there is like genuine benefit to mental health and well-being and community in coming together and doing something. And that could be at the level that Keli's at, which is extraordinary, or not at all. It can just be something for yourself or for fun, but that is a really powerful thing. The relationships between the people are like the most important thing, really. I think in terms of making the audience care, you know, otherwise, like the music is incredible, but if we don't care or invest in those central relationships, then there's only a limit to where we can go. The relationship Keli has with her mum is so vital to the story, so vital for Keli's journey, part of her, the reason she ends up in the mine, the reason she's desperate to get out of the mine. But then you also have really interesting relationships, Keli and the band leader Brian, which is sort of partly, it feels almost like a parental kind of feel to that, but they're also dead honest with each other, sometimes in a way that is like too far. You know, they fight with each other, they bicker with each other, and this is one of the sort of the most direct examples of this. But after Keli plays at the Albert Hall and she gets one note wrong, and I think that's also important. It's not like she's incredible, but for her it's just this one note that's slightly, you know, and that's it. But she's devastated, and I think she says to Willie Knox in sort of retrospect that what she wanted was like a warm, reassuring hug from Brian, you know, and just feeling probably in that, as we all do at moments that, you know, when you just feel like a kid and you want someone to tell you it's okay. So sets that up and then turns around and fuck you, Brian. It's like funny a little bit, but so sad to see as well. And if she was able to be more vulnerable in that moment and go, I'm so scared that I messed this up or whatever, then the whole trajectory of the play would be different. But you can just feel what that does and the explosion that causes. Yeah, so she's a character that's really lovely. She's full of being absolutely honest, but also not knowing how to let anyone in. I want audiences to have hung out with a really amazing young person, and they don't have to like her all the time. They can be frustrated at her or whatever, but to have really spent time with someone who actually has a lot to say, a lot to offer, and have been also like basked in the most amazing music.